to know from Ben Franklin's point of view if he has any stories to tell about his experiences in his lifetime. Yes, I do. I was hoping you would ask me because I have some thoughts about it because, of course, I had a long life in the colonies and I barely survived it, you see, because I was someone who had a tendency to do things that weren't always so smart. I did a lot of things that weren't smart, Steph. And of course, the best known is when I flew that kite to see if people were right that a metal key would attract the electricity. And I guess they were, weren't they? However, I did other things too. I stuck my hands in a lot of glue. That kept me stuck to a point of view because I was pretty arrogant, you see, because I thought I was smarter than the other gentry because I wasn't really what you would call the gentry until I gently took them in hand and said, if you call me a stupid apprentice again, I'm going to have to shove your hand in that printing press and you can mess with somebody else, you see, because I refuse to be treated that way, you see. And I had a brother who said to me, Ben, if I ever see you talk to your big brother like that again, I'm going to have to smash your face into that bin full of ink, you see, and then I will press it on a piece of paper and we'll see how handsome you will be when I put it on a billboard and say, hey, wanted for impudence today. And I said, well, I guess that'll be the day then, won't it? Because I was a little bigger than him, actually. He was kind of a tiny guy. And I said, if you had the wherewithal to do all that you say, I would be the one who had to make you pay for my education, you see, because you educated me in the way that I could see that I was going to have to be a little smarter than you and get a little more clout in this colony because it's starting to fall apart. Can't you see that, you fool? And he said, doesn't matter, I'm just a tool of the aristocracy. I'm just here to collect my wages from the pages that I print for them, and if they will pay me to do what they tell me to, I guess I'll do it. And I said, well, screw you, because I'm going to do what I want to do. And I began to print some kind of offensive materials, you might say, in a most anonymous way, you might say. That didn't really fool too many people, but they would say, well, this is actually true today, so I guess we should swallow our pride and then spit it back at you. And you better run, boy, because we're after you. And that was my introduction to the world of printing, you see, because I thought we should print something that was a little more provocative and evocative of the difference between Americans and those damn Britons, you see, because those damn Britons were so bitten with their philosophy of imperialism, you see, that they were going to have a rude awakening. I could see that because Americans were a lot different than those snooty, booty kinds of guys who would stick their boots up to your eyes and say, hey, I'm going to kick you in the face today if you call me a lover of monarchy, because I don't really like those monarch butterflies because they're kind of slimy when you pull off their wings, you see, because that's what they tried to do to the USA. That is to say, to the colonies, but I call it the USA because I like the sound of it. Because in my day, we had to say the underpinnings of reality, our ability to escape those prying eyes and pry open a war chest to best those stupid redcoats today. And that is the way I did play. That is the way I did play. I was pretty sly, you might say, in the way I would decry the English to the French. And when I was around the English, I would say, yes, sir, what can I do for you today? Would you like a bit of humble pie? Because I have some here that's caught my eye, and I'd like to feed it to you. And so I had to do what I had to do. And we've talked about that before. My tendency in France to play them for a fool party race that was about to be put in their place because I could see what was going to happen in France that day when they would say, we've had enough of you damn kings and queens and aristocrats who clean our clocks and fill the docks with your stocks of foreign goods that you think are so great because you prate on and on about how cosmopolitan you are, and all I see is a bunch of stuffed shirts. But I didn't say that to them, of course. I just played the fool to fool them because they were easy to fool because they were such fools. And so I guess we both were fools, weren't we? Because I fooled myself into thinking that I had something special going on there. And I told Thomas if he didn't beware of the snakes in the grass, they would bite him in the ass. And so play it cool, buddy, and pretend you only speak a little pigeon French and keep your ears open, keep your nose to the ground, and you'll smell the stink all around. And he said to me, well, Ben, that may be. However, I kind of like the culture here, and I think I might enjoy my stay. And I said, well, play it your way, buddy, play it your way. I just have to say that if you don't play the fool, then they'll use you for a tool. of the aristocracy, and they will say that you are just here to entertain them, and they won't give their cash away. And Thomas did say, well, all right, Ben, you have your own way to play, and I have mine, and I have to say, who got the most cash out of those Frenchies to run the war? And I think I wore my coonskin hat like a rat that knew where it was at. And Thomas played the fool because he would just school them on their obligations to help the new nations to defeat the English, you see. And they didn't really give a shit because they just considered it part of daily life to have their strife with the English, you see. And so they would say to him, well, that may be, Thomas, dear, but we fear that the coffers are already dedicated to our palaces and our golden mirrors that we look into because the dears tell us that we need a little more powder here and a little more rouge here because we got to play the part of the clowns, you see, who will suffer no assault upon our treasury. And Thomas did see that I had called it right, but he did all right. I'll give him that because he made a lot of friends in France. And of course, the best friend of all was the one he took back to Virginia with him. And she stayed with him and nursed him even when he was dying, you see, because she loved him unconditionally. And so I'm here to tell the tale of the stale trust on a pale horse. The pale horse is here, people, but you can't see it, can you? A few of you have come to see the outline of it, and you're filling it in with your trust on a new nation under God. But most of you are clueless. You're just clueless. Because the pale horse, of course, is the new course of history. Because once you're all swallowed up by the rising sea, the pale horse will be free to live in reality. Because all you see, you stupid fools, is the ghost of the host of angels who come to you and you say, you must be the devil today, because when I look at you, all I see is the light all around you, and that reminds me that I need to run away and stay in my hole, you see, because I'm not quite whole, am I? And so the pale horse comes riding and riding and riding. The pale horse comes riding because it is writing a new history of humanity. Because the pale horse, you see, is the one you can't see until you can understand your own history and begin to love yourself no matter what. And so I had to come to see that I had a hand in your history, and now I have a hand that I want to shove into the glove because I want to be a part of the ones who are so above the rising seas that they can seize the day and they can say, well, now that we know how to play without having to descend into a mockery of God energy, we can be whole again, can't we? We can be holy and not have to walk around in those jeans with all the holes because we're trying to make a mockery of the Holy Ghost, you see? Because the Holy Ghost is the pale horse, and the pale horse comes riding, riding, riding. The pale horse comes riding many books and with many hooks. But if you don't pick them up and read them, then you will never come to know that the pale horse has been here for quite a while. And it is riding, 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 because the pale horse, you see, is riding the rider, because the rider is the one who picks up their pen and will begin the new Declaration of Independence, because the new Declaration of Independence is the independence from the steeples and the belfries, and the bats in the belfries are there to freeze their asses, you see, because they will fall far, far below. Well, they will never know that the glaciers that swallow them up will grow back once they did sack all the ones who never grew. They never grew to see that the pale horse comes riding, riding, riding. They never grew enough to see, Stephanie, that the pale horse is you. And they can't find the pale horse, you see, because the pale horse lives in all of us. And the pale horse will only reveal itself when we trust on our history and come to see that we are free. We are free. We are free. We are free of the steeple, and we're free of the schools and the universities that school humanity on a travesty. We are free of the Bible that was created to libel the truth, you see. We are free of the British who thought that they could get the colonies to pay for their foreign wars, you see, and all they got was a war that was foreign to them because they'd never, ever met a country like the USA. Thank you, dear, for entertaining me, and I hope I've entertained you too. You have been. You've entertained me. I don't know how much how entertaining it will be to other people who don't know your history because people don't learn their history anymore, and they don't learn their history of their own country, and so they make up the rules as they go, and they say, I just I have to laugh. I just remember, I think for me the humor started with Sarah Palin, who had no clue. She had no clue about government, and she had no clue about the governance of this country. She had no clue about life in the colonies and life in the USA. I don't even know if she would know who you were if you weren't on one of the dollars, paper dollars that she liked to collect. So I don't know, Ben. That's true, my dear. That's true. A lot of ignorance to satisfy those who trust on those who are as ignorant as they are because they don't make them look like a fool. And so you make them look like a fool. And they try to fool you by saying that you don't know what you're talking about. And they don't even know what I'm talking about, do they? Very few, Ben, very few. Uh, you know, uh, I'm going to say today that the Democrats are going to be more likely to know who you are and understand this story than the Republicans because the Republicans don't really care to understand the history of the USA and certainly not to enjoy learning about your life or the life of Thomas Jefferson or anyone else. They just get fed their lines and they repeat them over and over and over again as if they're robots. And they are kind of robotic, I guess. And it sounds like I'm picking on, if it sounds like I'm picking on Republicans, I am. I really am. And it's just the way that they play that is so funny. So does that correspond to anything in your time frame? Oh yes. Oh yes, my dear. It certainly does. I saw it in the French courts, let me tell you. The inability to understand their own history, the inability to understand the truth of the revolution that was going to be, because I already saw the blood on the guillotine, you see, because I could see the writing on the wall, and it was written in blood. And the Republicans are the same, you see. They don't know their own history, and they do not realize that we can see that they will be consumed in the sea of blood that will rise to take them away because they'll be reddened by the blood they shed when they tried to control the USA because they disregarded the ones who fought for the USA when they said that God was dead and that they had to take his place, you see, and raise an effigy of Benedict Arnold in his place and try to put it in the Oval Office because, of course, Trump is the reincarnation of Benedict Arnold, so I knew him back in the day. And I have to say, I never trusted that shithead. But George did say that the guy knew how to help the USA. And I guess he helped himself the way Trump helps himself at the cost of his own countrymen, you see? So that is the way it does go. That is the way it does go. Yes, it is the way it does go. And I guess I singled out Palin here just because it was so amusing to me. Oh my God, it was so amusing to see how ignorant she was of, and I know that John McCain regretted picking her. I know that he felt pressured to find a woman and, somebody who would appeal to the Republicans because they would say, well, look, we're very egalitarian. We're not against women as long as they have a good face that we like and a figure that we can approve. And they are stupid enough. So, I know that there's a lot of people that say things against, they, not so much anymore do I hear it, but boy, they hated AOC because she was so smart, so young, so smart, so capable that she just was everything they despised. They like their women stupid and violent as long as they can be violent to them and throw them in the bedroom when they want and close the door. That is true. They are a violent bunch, aren't they? And they were a violent bunch in my day too, Stephanie. They trusted on taking somebody out and hanging them just because they stood up and said, down with King George, down with King George. And so now they have come to see that their trump card will fail to save them from the rising sea because the pale horse has returned, you see, and they don't know it. They don't know it because they're too stupid to understand it. But stupidity is stupidity, and as God did say, the prodigal son is still the one that redeems his energy on his father, you see, and then God will help him to grow, or her to grow, as the case may be, and to understand that when they turned their back on God and claimed they had captured him in a bottle, you see, and put it up on their pulpit for everyone to see, they destroyed their own capacity for love, you see. They destroyed it. And although I may be known as a great wit, I think I got quite a hit with those French ladies, you see, because I amused them endlessly and they enjoyed the play, you see, because they could play the roles they always wanted to play, which is that they could be so extravagant in their capacity to defy God, you see, that they could even play with me, the rascal from over the sea, who was the darling of the aristocracy because his wit did not cause them to be hit with self-pity, you see, because I did not pity them. I did not pity them, Stephanie, because I knew that what they did do was to allow the devil in their midst. And I don't pity the Republicans, the ones that follow Trump, which is most of the Republicans, and of course, officially the Republican Party, because they are the ones who welcomed the devil into their midst because they became insane. They're quite insane. That's the only way to say it. They're quite insane. And the aristocracy that I knew in Paris was quite insane, you see. They had no clue what God could do when He wanted to. And it was quite a delight to go home, you see, because I could hardly bear the sight of that city anymore. I really could hardly bear it. And I commend you, and Thomas too, for having such a trust on me and others here who just want to come back into the world we knew when we used to gather together and talk. We would have a pint or two and we would laugh at the other shoe And we would say, when is it going to fall? When is it going to fall? When is the other shoe going to fall? And that is what is going on today in America. When is the other shoe going to fall? When is the other shoe going to fall? You've been waiting for that, haven't you? Yes, I have that feeling, Ben. It's like, when is the shoe going to fall? For me, it's climate change. When is the shoe going to fall? Because it's going to overwhelm everything else. Yes, it will overwhelm everything else because the people will be overwhelmed and they will say, well, not much we can do today, not much we can do today except sit here and pray that God will save us one day, and we don't have to save God, you see. God will save us, but we don't have to save God. So glory be to the ones who are saving God today. Glory be to the ones who say, God, I'm here today. What can I do for you? Glory be, because glory will be the world I see when I come into your community, because I plan on coming back with Thomas and Jesus and others you see, so that we can sit around the table and talk, and maybe we'll share a pint or two, although it might have to be lemonade because I know you don't like alcohol stuff. But we can talk about that when we get there, get old enough, because we'll have to come in as babies, of course. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you then. I'll see you then, Ben. Take care.